can't tell you who to vote for, and we're not going to tell you who to vote for. That's what you're looking for.
What is up, everyone? So what's basically happening is that PA, which is the state I live in, is now reporting that there's been voter frauds. But I must point out that these were in favor of the Democratic candidates. So we know where the fraud's happening for sure. Stuffing the ballot box with fraudulent votes. That's absurd. These corrupt people are shaping your life. How fair is that? It's not fair at all. The corruption is insane. Crazy.
You've got to go out and you've got to get your friends and you've got to get everybody you know. And you got to watch your polling booths, because I hear too many stories about Pennsylvania, certain areas. And we can't lose an election because of you know what I'm talking about. So go and vote and then go check out areas, because a lot of bad things happen. And we don't want to lose for that reason. We don't want to lose, but we don't want to lose for that reason. So go over and watch carefully, because we're going to win the state of Pennsylvania. And if we win the state of Pennsylvania, we take back the White House.
Mr. Trump, I want to ask you about one last question in this topic. You have been warning at rallies recently that this election is rigged.
He made similar claims and used similar language in 2016, Chris. What does that tell you about the president?
There is a tradition in this country. In fact, one of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, that at the end of the campaign, the loser concedes to the winner, and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
That's horrifying. You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him.
Let's begin with you. What was so fascinating about your poll is that it was of rural voters, mainly Republican, in Pennsylvania. And you went to, and I thought it was a brilliant move, you went to actually a Republican polling firm just to make sure the results were straight up. What did you find?
As public gatherings of all kinds continue to be postponed or reimagined due to COVID-19, people are beginning to wonder what might happen with another major event this fall, the presidential election. We've got answers to big questions you may be asking about how to vote during a pandemic. Why can't we vote online?
Is there any work being done on a national mail-in voting plan, or is it being left to the states?
Who can change voting laws during a crisis?
With the possibility of a second wave of COVID coming in the fall, there's been talk of delaying the presidential election in November. Is there any actual constitutional or legal pathway for this to happen?
Voting rules differ from state to state, and amid a pandemic, that is more true than ever, with legal fights erupting coast to coast.
If a person doesn't use the secrecy envelope, their vote will not count.
As many as 100,000 votes statewide could be invalidated because of missing privacy envelopes.
That would be catastrophic.
To me, it's ridiculous that votes should be thrown out for a technicality when it's very clear how the voter intended to vote.
Pennsylvania Republicans, who, by the way, control the legislature, tell us the state Supreme Court has weighed in on these so-called naked ballots, and the law is the law. It is unlikely, they tell us, any changes will be made before November.
President Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 by just over 44,000 votes.
So let's begin now with Kathy Boockvar, the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, who leads the state's voting efforts. So give us a sense of the numbers that you're seeing on absentee ballot requests compared to 2016. So is the state prepared to handle that increased demand for mailed ballots in time for the election?
Yes, absolutely. In the primary of 2020, we already had almost 1.5 million voters vote by mail. So the counties have been working around the clock to make sure that they have what they need, the resources in place, equipment, staffing, and so forth, and they will get it done.
Is voting by mail secure?
Absolutely, 100%.
In Pennsylvania, voting by mail is not a reaction to the coronavirus. The Commonwealth legalized it last fall.
From the very start, the county election offices are checking your eligibility. They check the PennDOT database and compare it to the information in their records and make sure that you're eligible before they even send you a ballot.
As you are well aware, I'm sure Pennsylvania could very well decide the election. So how long do you expect it could take for final results to be known there, in particular, if it can't be counted until Election Day? Should voters expect more of an election week instead of an election night?
We know that every voter, most importantly, wants the votes to be counted accurately, and on top of that, counted accurately as quickly as possible.
This actually should not be a contentious issue. It should be a bipartisan issue to allow every Pennsylvanian to have access to their fundamental right to vote. We have seen these tactics before. That's why the Voting Rights Act struck down a lot of these things, including allowing people to come from out of county, standing at ballot locations that have nothing to do with them trying to intimidate people. And so if folks want a free and fair process, let's have an amendment that allows everybody to vote, that makes it as easy as possible for people to vote. That's the American thing to do. That's what we ought to be doing. And unfortunately, it has been driven by national politics. Unfortunately, it's been driven by a president that wants to make people feel you can boo if you want. That's
Gentlemen,
okay.
will please suspend.
That's okay.
Turn off his mic.
NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns joins us now from Beaver County, Pennsylvania. Dasha, what can you tell us about that meeting with Beaver County election officials? What came out of it?
You had the county commissioners, you had folks from the Elections Bureau, and you had the county sheriff all trying to wrestle with questions that are pretty unique to this race. There are 129 polling places across Beaver County. That's a lot of locations to keep track of, and what they're trying to do is make sure that everyone feels safe going to every single one of them to exercise their right to vote. One of the big pieces here, not just COVID, but voter intimidation. Tensions are high in this county as they are in so many places across the country. The sheriff here told me that he's seen family fighting with family, friends fighting with friends, and he does not want that to spill over into the voting areas.
We're out here to hopefully change what's going on in our country and get somebody that's right for us, that will speak for us, that will fight for us. And that's the main reason why we're here.
I think people are tired of the division, tired of the hatred, tired of just the hateful rhetoric that we continue to hear every day, all day. We need a change in this country to bring us back together. My parents were living during the unrest of the 50s and the 60s. We've come full circle, and that's starting to happen in our communities now because of the hateful rhetoric that people are hearing. I'm not saying that white supremacy or racism ever died, but it has been allowed to come back to life, roaring like a raging tiger because of the hateful rhetoric that people are hearing. Our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren deserve better. So we have to work as hard as we can to make sure that there's change and we come back together as the American people that we need to be.
As we're getting closer to this election, it's crunch time. Let's make a change. The inequality and the lack of empathy and the lack of policy changes to make things better for everybody, I think is huge on the ticket right now. And they're speaking out about it, which is, I think, a first step, that they need to recognize that it's there, speak out about it, and let's start coming up with a plan. They're listening. They're listening. And I think that's the biggest thing that this party is doing that I do see. I see a lot of people out there trying to help, even like in the last few months, the marches we've had, the events like this, social media, sharing things, Twitter, tweeting, Instagram. I do see a lot out there. That's what drew me to want to help even more, because I'm starting to see that there's a big change. We're tired. We're tired.
A lot of people in the community don't know their voting rights, and so we're trying to educate them. Wanted to do more than just complain about things, so I got involved. Right. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
Well, usually by now we have canvassed. I mean, my little crew would have hit the pavement and gone to everybody's house, with information about everybody that's running, who they're able to vote for. And we haven't been comfortable doing that you don't want to impose on people's porches. So that's been hard. We have done some door hangers, and we have just recently gotten back into knocking on a few doors. But for a lot of this season, we have not done the normal things that we do. We usually have a lot more meet and greets, where you have wine and cheese, and people will get to meet the candidates, and we recruit volunteers. So that's been a challenge. Changing everything digital, trying to do more town hall meetings, having the candidates do those online or on social media, just trying to catch up so that you can get yourself out there using the digital world. I've watched that slowly pick up pace. And then we just had an event, with masks required and social distancing, where we had voter registration and the census there, just trying to get people familiar with who they can vote for.
People excited?
They are excited, yeah, and I think that they're also nervous. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we are all doing our best to be motivated, to get out there, to promote the candidates. We make phone calls. We personally in Beaver County, we have upped our voter turnout, just connecting with the voters, just knocking on the doors, introducing yourselves, holding events like this. They matter. It brings people out and gets them excited about what's going on.
I'm here for a number of reasons. Number one, it's so important for us to be a part of our democracy and taking charge of our own voices. So it's important for us to vote. So that's why I'm here, to raise awareness in our community, because our community needs to be uplifted in this way and inspired in this way. So I want to do that. And I also am running for state representative here in this district. So
go ahead, make the
plug. So I'm here to be your representative, because representation is so crucial and important. That's what brings the hope to our community.
Well, this is actually my first voter registration event. I've been trying to be a lot more active in phone bank and stuff like that. I just feel like it's just super important right now. To me, it seems like everyone's making the best of it despite COVID. There's so much enthusiasm, and it's really cool.
What inspires you to get involved?
I don't think I could go forward without feeling like I had done everything that I could do to do my part and just get people out there to vote.
What's your sense of how other people are feeling?
It seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, even on my social media and stuff like that, I see a lot more people just posting stuff and, being aware of what's going on. People are more motivated to go out there than they were last time. Especially with COVID and everything else that's going on, it's probably going to be really hard, especially for people who don't have reliable transportation or things like that. Volunteers, I don't think, can pick people up and take them to the polls now because of COVID. People who are at risk have to stay home. Being a good citizen is going out and voting, and you can never waste that opportunity. And I feel like the only way for things to move forward is that there's a huge turnout, especially with all the misinformation and different things going on in different states. And I hope that there's a lot of people that just show up and, want more. Even Republican, Democrat, I just hope that people come together, because our shared values mean more than the party on our, on our ballot.
What do you think is the motivating thing that's getting Beaver Countyans out to vote?
I mean, I would assume that they're angry about what's going on. Things are still closing down. Kids at school have to wear masks all the time. I would hope that they would want things to get better, for us to have more coordinated, efficient ways of dealing with the virus. And I just hope people are angry enough to go and want some change.
How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots. We're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote, because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you. And in terms of when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. So vote. just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years.
Mr. President?
So there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. There's fraud. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, and I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's lines drawn for sure. I mean, there are relationships that are being torn apart by, differences in this thing. It's crazy. Crazy time. COVID made it a little bit more difficult.
Please vote, 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 because all of our lives depend on voting. If you want to vote for me, you don't want to vote for yourself, vote for your children, vote for your grandchildren, vote for your great-grandchildren. But please,